I'm making this bookshelf with construction lumber and 1/4 inch plywood. The build requires minimal basic tools because of how simple the design is. I'm starting off first by cutting 2 side pieces 6 feet in length. With the sides cut, I was ready to cut out 7 pieces at 22.5 inches. 3 of these are going to be used for permanent supports, top, bottom, and middle, and the rest are going to be used for adjustable shelves. The measurement may sound a little odd for these pieces, but that's because I'm working with 8-foot boards and I'm trying to minimize the amount of waste. But you can make the width of these supports and shelves anything you want. After cutting out all of the shelf and support pieces, I pre-sanded everything because it's way easier to sand everything now than trying to get in all the nooks and crannies later when it's assembled. Here you can see a big burn mark, and that's one of the things you have to deal with when working with construction lumber, but a little bit of sanding is all it really takes to get rid of that. Next, I marked out all of the permanent support locations. Notice how I'm offsetting the bottom support piece here because I'll be adding trim around the bottom. Next, I marked out all of the shelf pin holes for my adjustable shelving. I simply went every 5 inches here to make it easy. And all I did is took a 1/4 inch bit and I put some blue tape on it just to make sure I wouldn't drill too far. You really don't need any fancy templates here. For initial assembly, I'm gluing and screwing together the 2 side pieces and the 3 permanent supports. I'm using this combination drill and countersink bit just to make things easier. Something you can do here if you're okay waiting for glue to dry, instead of screws you can use through dowels. Simply switching to a 1/4 inch bit and just putting a dowel all the way through both pieces with plenty of glue and letting it dry before removing clamps. I'm adding plugs to hide the screw holes on the middle support piece. This isn't needed on the top or bottom because that's going to be hidden by trim. I'm attaching the back panels, making sure they overlap on the middle support piece, and I'm nailing these in by hand. This is a really good use case for a brad nailer if you have one. Next, I had to trim down the top panel. Now, I wasn't sure here whether a table saw could be considered basic or not, but don't be discouraged if you don't have one. All I'm doing is cutting a panel in half, which can be a table saw, circular saw, jigsaw, handsaw, whatever you want. But anyway, I attached the top panel after cutting it out. I took the bookshelf and plopped it on the floor so I could test the fit of all of the adjustable shelves and also just check out the look of it so far. Next, I cut out the trim. Here's another use case where you don't need a table saw. You can buy smaller nominal sizes or pre-made trim. But I wanted a simple chamfer on my trim, so I decided to use a 1x8, cut it down, and just rip a 45 on top. I started with the lower trim. Now, if you've ever done trim in a house, it's pretty similar to that. All I'm doing is wrapping around the bookshelf though, so this is super easy. Just 45s and making sure it's the right lengths. Here's a trick if you haven't already seen it before, using CA glue kind of as a clamp to help hold the pieces together while the wood glue dries. This way I can assemble the entire bottom trim piece before sliding it on the bottom. It helps keep the corners tight. To attach the trim on the bottom, I'm simply gluing it in place, and yes, this will be strong enough. To attach the trim on the top, it's basically the same process, but I made my trim more like crown molding, so it's just a little trickier to cut out, but it's the same process. Now with everything assembled, I was ready to finish, and I was originally thinking of using a black stain or something like that, but I actually started to really like the character of this construction lumber as I was working with it, so I decided just a clear finish would be best.